Hi, so in this video I want to take a moment and show you how to configure the NPS server so that the remote access server sends authentication requests back to the NPS server located on your read-write DC01. So this will involve installing the network policy service on your domain controller and reconfiguring the remote access server to send the authentication request back. Before you get started though, you should check and make sure that everything's working. So right now I have a remote access server configured, and if I switch over to a Windows 8 client and I try to connect to the VPN, so I'm on the outside network and I'm able to connect successfully, and I'm using iKey version 2 and it works fine. So if it doesn't work, you should fix your configuration first and then go into moving the NPS settings. I'll go back to the server 01. This is currently configured as the remote access server. And right now, if I launch the NPS settings, I can see that I have one network policy configured, and this allows all Windows clients to connect successfully and grant them access. So I'll set this to deny access. If I go back to the Windows 8 client and I just disconnect this VPN, I try to reconnect. This time it tells me that policy it's denied me access, and that makes sense because I just set it to deny access. Right? So it is checking this local policy right now. The fact that it's checking this local policy is because of a setting on the remote access server itself. So select properties of the remote access server, and under the security tab there is an authentication provider. And you can drop down this menu and it's got Radius and Windows. Radius is to use the network policy server. So NPS is Microsoft's implementation of Radius. And so if I change this to be Radius authentication, at that point it won't check the local NPS settings, it'll look for it on a separate server. That server is defined under this option here where you go to configure this server that you want to use. And I've got one entry in here already. It says shane-rwdc01.coffee.local. So I resolve that name back to my domain controller that I will install NPS on, and I have a shared secret. So this is just a password that you set it the same on the other server, and it's a shared secret, and you can see that it's using TCP port 1812. Okay, so I have to install NPS on this other server and set it up with the same shared secret. Okay, so I'll go over to the domain controller and log in with the right password. Okay, so I have to install the role for NPS, and if you look here, there's network policy and access service. So I'll check this box, install all the features that it needs. And you're asked if you want the network policy server, which is all we need for this. There's also the health registration authority used for NAP, and host credential authorization policy. This is with Cisco network access control. Okay, so all we need for this right now is the network policy server. I'll go ahead and install it. Okay, so it's fully installed. I'm going to go under Tools, and now I'll have network policy server. So expanding this, you can see this Radius clients and servers. And click on Radius clients, and there's no Radius client set up. So the Radius client is your remote access server. So routing remote access becomes a client of Radius. So I have to configure a client here. I can say new. I give it a friendly name, so it's Shane server 01. And the IP address or DNS, Shane server 01.coffee.local. You can verify it to ensure name resolution works. It works. And the shared secret, put that in manually. Type in whatever you've typed in on the other server as the shared secret. You can see here it's got select an existing shared secret template. That's listed under templates over here, we could create this settings for the shared secret ahead of time and then just drop this menu down. If it's a generated key that's quite long, we want to use the same key all the time, we can use a template, but we can type it in manually as well, like I have here. Okay, so I have it set to use that NPS server as a client, or the remote access server as a client. And at this point, when somebody connects to the remote access server here, because I have this set to radius authentication, it'll pass that request for conditions and constraints back to this server. So now I still can't have users connect because I don't have any policies. So I need a connection request policy and a network policy. So you can see here that we have network policies listed, but just like they were on the other server, but none of them are enabled. They're set to deny access. Well, this is just a day and time restriction, the default one. It matches everybody. So anybody that's using remote desktop or VPN or anything, and the only condition is a day and time restriction that's all the time, so it catches anybody anytime. And there's no specific settings here either. So it matches everybody. So anybody that connects from any type of connection request that comes back to the NPS server matches this policy. So if there's a match made here, it goes to network policies, and it has to make a match under network policies. So I could go under here and just grant access to this one policy, hit apply, and this would be the simplest setup to check to see if the radius request is being met on this NPS server. So I'll go back to Windows 8. I'll just try this again. And it says connection is prevented because of policy configured. Let's take a look at my properties for my settings here. Security. MS Chat version 2. Looks fine. Did I apply this? Should always hit apply. Yeah. Wait for that to finish. Helps to turn the mouse around counterclockwise, speeds things up. See? And let's try this again. Okay, so now I'm connected. So it passed. The authentication request comes to this server. This server has a setting to use radius to send the request to this server, which is back here. This one has a matching radius client and a connection request policy that matches anybody. And then it had a network policy set to grant access that matched the condition of my client, and constraints were met for authentication. Okay, so it works. So that proves that the remote access server sent the request back to the NPS server. Okay, that's it. Beyond this, we would get into configuring additional connection request policies and network policies.